the number one most difficult thing about being a founder, non-attachment to outcome. Something will work because it was created by someone no more capable than yourself.
Welcome to another episode of the Accelerometer. Today, we've got Izu, who's building an AI tech startup. Now, Izu is a very special guest because he was one of the first people I met when I moved to San Francisco. And within a few hours of talking, we decided to throw an event called AI in the Park, morphed into AI on the Couch. And in my opinion, it was the best event in San Francisco. I don't think there was a better event.
I remember when that was the event to go to, and that was like, I was like, wow, you really can just get up and just do things in this city. And that's one of the things that I just love about San Francisco.
Oh, it's really wonderful.
Yeah.
So how's it been?
It's been pretty phenomenal. Yeah. I feel like the city's like really welcomed me. I feel like I've really found my tribe here. And I do feel like
You also just moved to San Francisco.
I'd been here so when we met, I'd been here for about a year, give or take. But I had just really started to kind of like accelerate.
Accelerate.
That was not intentional.
You know what? It's on everybody's minds right now. Everybody's saying we're accelerating this or accelerating that.
Yes, I actually am behind the curve because I just found out what the E/ACC means at the end of everyone's.
You just learned about it.
Well, because I try to actually not be on Twitter.
Okay.
Right. You know why? It's because I do everything, like my productivity, my mindset, everything just comes to a complete screech after I spend like 10, 20 minutes scrolling my timeline.
So where do you get your news?
Where do I get my news?
Yeah.
Talking to other people. Two, when things are like, I have like enough people in my sphere, right?
Yeah.
Which is very nice being an SF because it's just like in the air where like, if something is big enough, it'll find its way to me. Right.
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
Okay. What's the last big thing that found its way to you?
GPT-4 Vision.
Okay. So you just heard about it from friends. You're just sitting around there like, by the way, GPT-4 Vision.
That was actually a very funny instance because, for that one, I was actually on Twitter, and it was like, that was my first time on Twitter for like 4 days. And it was because me and my co-founder were testing something and we needed to grab a tweet to do it. And then I was scrolling my timeline. I was just like, wait, what? Oh, they did it. It's out. Okay. All right, let's go. It was like within 30 minutes of it being announced.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's even better than Twitter.
Yeah.
You make me feel like I've got high latency news. I feel like I found out about it a day after it came out.
Oh, really?
So it was just like, by the way, are you multimodal yet? I was like, what?
Are you multimodal yet? Oh my God, that's gonna be the new. Are you 64-bit?
Yeah.
Oh.
And when did you decide to build a startup?
Oh, I mean, that traces back to like me being in high school, watching Steve Jobs walk across the stage. I'm like, literally
that guy
just
is
like
building a startup.
I was like,
the guy with the $300 billion company. That's a startup.
The billions and all that. That was not something that I understood or had a concept of at the time. I just was like,
it was just Steve Jobs was a badass.
Well, it was just like wanting to make things that help people and like and his ability to like storytell and captivate. And I was like, wow. You know?
So you were like one of the first iPhone users just sitting there, like, this is amazing.
Oh no, I was an Android boy at the beginning, for real. And what actually happened was, so I was like, I was coding. I started coding in like middle schoolish, and then got an Android phone, and then was building apps for that. And what actually happened is that eventually I fell in love with design, right? And as I was falling more and more in love with it, I realized that I could not design good apps on an Android phone. I needed to switch over. I was seeing what people were making on the iPhone, and that's actually what got me to switch to the iPhone.
How did you start programming? What was the first thing you ever programmed?
That's a funny question. It was an app for the Mac called Talk to the Mac.
Talk to the Mac.
Yeah. It was
You've been ahead of the AI curve ever since.
It was a chat app where you talk to your Mac. There was no networking or anything involved. And basically it just had like pre-programmed responses to different like things that you put into it. And
People are getting money for that now.
you know,
They're getting VC money. Gotta revive it.
if I knew the words VC, I just heard of I have a friend who just taught me that she runs a summer camp, right, for high school kids, teaching them to become VC ready. I'd never heard VC ready in high school. Honestly, it's incredible.
I feel like that was my entire childhood. I went to preparatory school. Like life was preparing me to be VC ready. I'm still not fucking VC ready. Like, what does that even mean?
Insane. Because I mean, I went to public school. The words VC were not in my vocabulary for a very long time.
It's just like so explicit. Like, we're gonna prepare you to beg for money.
I mean, for real, they're calculating like, you know, like customer acquisition costs, like LTVs in high school, and like I'm more power to them, honestly. Like you know, I can definitely see like the angle where some people might be like, oh, that's kind of like, you know, like either elitist or like this or that. But like honestly, like let's do more to prepare kids for like being able to like grab life by the horns later on.
Yeah, I like that.
And so yeah, that was the app. The one quirky thing about the app though is that see, I was bad at algebra when I was in middle school. So I did not know what a variable was. Yeah. So all of the apps that I made back then, and I made a couple. I made a racing game, I made like a map, I made a couple things. They all had this giant window that would run in the background of whatever you were doing. It was just a matrix of text fields that were constantly changing because I knew how to put values into and out of UI elements, but I did not know how to set a variable.
Oh, I love that. That's so hacker. So I want to play with this app. Do you still have it?
No, I don't have the code. I doubt it would run on a modern Mac, but literally you'd be playing this like racing game and in the background is just like hundreds of text fields with like the speed changing and the this changing and and then one day I learned what a variable was and I was like, oh my God.
That sounds so neat. Like, I bet you would feel like such a badass playing this game.
Oh my God. You know what? Yeah, I made all the graphics in Photoshop and everything. Yeah, I just imagine like, I remember like, I think I was like in 8th grade or something when it clicked, like how to make a variable. And I was like, is anyone else seeing this? Yeah. So
I want to try something as variable-less programming.
Yeah. Honestly, those were some weird
hackathon.
Of variable list programming. Yeah. I think that nobody would show up. Just absolutely nobody.
We're gonna market it right.
That's true. That's true. It's all about marketing.
This is the marketing for the variable list hackathon.
Absolutely. Yeah, this is actually it. You did not realize, but this entire thing is actually an ad for the new variable list hackathon. Yeah. The next one after that is the computerless hackathon.
I mean, I feel like so many hackathons for the computerless hackathon. When was the last time you went to a hackathon and you saw people sitting there with computers? They're networking events now, aren't they?
They are. They're very networking event inclined, you know, these days. But like there's some good hackathons out there. There was the Outside LLMs hackathon.
Outside LLM.
Outside LLM. You know Outside Lands, the SF music thing. It's exactly what it sounds like.
It's like Outside Lands, but harder to pronounce.
It's like Outside Lands, harder to pronounce. But everybody was like hacking on music related apps. Outside Lambs. Outside Lambs. That's what they have to call it next year.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
I mean,
you know that you were the very first person that I ever heard the word LLM from?
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's incredible.
Like I'd known GPT-3, I'd known GPT-4, I'd been like using these, but no one had ever referred to them as an LLM before.
You know, LLM is now like the old term. We've given up on LLM.
Oh, what's the new term?
LLMs.
Is that because like
some of them aren't large, and you don't want
some of them aren't large. I did see that like that new model that Apple is putting into the new version of iOS is definitely not a large LLM.
It's an SLM.
It's a slim.
Yeah,
slim.
But you got to be model inclusive.
Oh, it's a slim.
Oh, that is the best branding.
Interesting.
What brought you to where you are today? So you at some point fell in love with design. Right. So you spent a few years designing things, right?
Oh, I designed things, many things.
I guess though, to build a startup, you had to get back into programming. So how has the journey been?
So it was easy for me because I never left programming. Programming to me, it was like the water. Even so like for example, for a while I was designing at MailChimp. I was the I led product design for marketing automation. And
Yeah.
even while I was doing that, I was building design tools so that non-technical designers on our team could do things like embed data into their prototypes and stuff like that, right? It was like I would occasionally, when I was working on the mobile design team before that, if I was working with engineers and then there was something I designed that they were having trouble implementing, I would go and implement it and be like, okay, let's like do the thing. It was never like a homecoming for me. It was more just like okay, like roll my fists up. All right, this is what like I'm going at now.
Yeah.
And it also means the design for me now looks a lot different. My design like workflow doesn't really look like me designing in Figma and then moving over to code. I just design straight up in code now, which has
You're designing code, pure like CSS, or like you mean like even lower level?
For me, it's primarily like Tailwind, but Tailwind and React, but
yeah.
Next.
Oh, I do the same thing sometimes. I feel like it doesn't go well for me.
Oh, it's like I would say Tailwind CSS was a big game changer. That kind of made it possible, but yeah.
No, I was designing like pure like handwritten CSS. Erase all of the properties of every start from scratch.
I cannot say that I would do that myself, but I actually did when I first started doing this because so actually when I first left my job to build startups, I was building an app that made apps, right? So that you could make apps without knowing how to code. That was the idea.
A no-code app machine.
Yes, yeah. But the problem is that I myself did not know web engineering. I'd only done like native engineering on mobile and desktop. So I was learning how to code for the web, and my first project was a web app that spit out other web apps. That was also pre-Tailwind, or like for me, pre all that. So I was like,
I gotta ask, why didn't you build this in a web app that spit out web app builders?
You know what? I think that I see what you're saying now, and I think we could actually go further. I think what I should have done is build a web app builder that spit up web app builders that would spit out web apps, right? And today we just call that
GPT.
Exactly. Today we would just call that GPT-4. That's actually why I stopped working on it, is because I used GPT-3 for the first time, and I looked at what I was working on, and I looked at GPT-3, and I took the JSON format, the app definition format, I put it in GPT-3, and then I would ask it like, hey, make the button on the homepage red, and then it would just do it. And I was like, oh, everything is about to change. And I just stopped working on what I was doing. Literally everything. I was like, none of this is going to be the same in a year. There's
Is it that different from a year ago?
Is software that different from a year ago? I don't think that we've even begun to scratch the surface. I'm actually kind of surprised how similar things have been. Like we're seeing a lot of like for example, there's ChatGPT. That's big, right? And but like aside from ChatGPT, which is kind of like the raw usage of these models, a lot of what we're seeing from, and then of course like the image generation stuff and the video generation stuff, that's cool too. A lot of what we're seeing from software companies is still like attaching chat to things, or like an auto-generated title here, or like an automated suggestion there. Like I still think that we have not really seen a ground-up re-envisioning of software categories in the image of the LLM. I still think that the wave of AI native companies is yet to come.
So it's superficial what's going on at the moment.
Obviously I don't know what like people are working on behind the scenes, but like so far, I can't even say we've scratched the surface yet of what these things can really do in implementation, in practice.
What out there currently excites you?
What out there currently excites me? The agent work. The agent work does excite me. I think that's incredibly cool. I think that is actually a step towards like a re-envisioning of how we interact with software.
Yeah. Did you go to the agent hackathon?
I did not go to the agent hackathon. I've been pretty leaning away from the hackathon front recently. Yeah.
Can imagine it's a lot of work being a founder.
It's like, there's like a whole lot of stuff. I also just like find myself getting into a good flow state hacking in my room. But were you at the agent hackathon?
Wait, it wasn't a hackathon. It was just an agent meetup. Like 2 nights ago here, even.
Oh, okay. Yeah. No, I did not go. Were you at the agent meetup?
I went there and heard the state of the art about the agents and how they're still unable to do things, and it was just like
Did you
good
see?
progress
Did you see anything that excited you? Not just limited to
Yeah.
agents, but in general.
in life in general.
Yeah. In being, one might say.
I think rope scaling is really cool.
Rope scaling?
Yeah.
Like scaling a mountainside with a rope.
I mean, that's also pretty cool, but no, the rope scaling laws paper where they're able to take a smaller model and increase the size of its context without losing accuracy. Like, that's really exciting. I think we're going to see a lot of improvements on model context windows pretty soon.
Okay. Like, how big are we talking? Like these improvement in context windows?
They checked on 8K context windows.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, because like I mean, I know that GPT-4 has the larger context windows now. Like, is it 32K? And then like Claude has like 100K now.
But when was the last time you used 32K or 100K?
We actually do use a lot of tokens at
Yeah.
Charm. Like, because I mean, we're putting full transcripts into these
Does it
things.
work?
Yeah,
Like, full
actually,
quality?
yeah.
Okay.
It is actually pretty good.
We're using Claude.
Yeah, we're multi-model.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This was actually the hardest thing for me about becoming a founder, was learning like how much the aesthetics mattered. Like when raising money, when going and talking to a client, like it needs to look real. It doesn't matter if your tech is the best tech. It needs to look like your tech is the best tech.
Yeah, it's something that like it's something that you can actually see across like other industries. Like, Apple is the obvious example. Nintendo is actually another one that comes to mind for me, where neither companies, well, for a long time, Apple now is like definitely putting out some like insane stuff on the processor front and all of this. But like for a while, it's not that they had the strongest processors or the most memory, like, or that like Nintendo systems had the best graphics or whatever. However, they definitely had the most unique experiences that kept people coming back, right?
Yeah.
And it turns out that's what matters, right?
Playful.
Like they were playful. They were both playful, and they were both giving you something that you could not get from anybody else.
It's kind of funny though, because Sony, like there were what, like 3 game systems on the market: Sony, Xbox, and Nintendo.
There's a Dreamcast too.
And it's just
there was the
over.
Dreamcast.
Yeah.
It's no longer, rest in peace.
But Sony and Xbox, it's not like there were that many other people for them to be just like everybody else. They were just like the Xbox or just like Sony.
Yeah.
And yet that similarity like makes it just so much that like, I guess they were also just like themselves. Like every new box that they put out was just like a faster version of the last box.
It's just more them, right? And like,
And Nintendo was like, what if these boxes could fly?
literally, they were just like, what if the user could fly? I mean, like,
what if you could take the box apart and take it with you on your trips? Your friends could mix and match your boxes.
I remember seeing the Wii Remote when I was a kid, and I was like, I'm sorry, that thing can do what?
Just tilt it.
Like,
also tilt it. And also you throw it at people.
I was just expecting
but don't throw it too hard. Here's a rubber casing so that if you do throw it too hard.
Yes. Also, if you break your TV, limited liability warranty. But for real, like I was just expecting like a GameCube Pro, and then I was just gonna not buy it. And then they came out with that thing, and I was just like, Mom, we gotta.
We need the iPhone Wii. Where's our iPhone that we already have phones that fold, and I want an iPhone that I could like strap to the top of my head.
Now that's the kind of thing that would excite me to see like around here. People working on like, new computers. I think that that's actually like what we're really that's what the promise is here, right? Like with a lot of this. And perhaps maybe the innovation, the revolution will be on the hardware front, maybe it won't be. Like I've not necessarily been a hardware centric person in my own life. I've been more software when it comes to what I build. But like there is such insane potential for a reimagining of how we work with our content and how we put things out there, that like it just fills me with such like intensity. I with such passion, right? To be able to bring that about, and then also to be the bridge, right? And to be surrounded by other people like yourself and everyone else around here, that are the bridges to this future, and actually helping people unlock their creativity with these things. You know what I think is the most interesting thing about like founding and then like operating, that like I feel like some people kind of talk about, but you don't really like get it until you're going to try to do it, is how important it is to manage your own psychology when you're doing this kind of thing. Right. I read this paper by like, I think it was like, or this blog post by Ben Horowitz like years ago. And he was like, the number one most difficult thing about being a founder is managing your own psychology. And like, I always find myself coming back to that. And honestly, like every year I just look back at the past year or even the past 6 months and find that like, it's just truer than ever. Right. From things like, you know, like needing to like understand one's own like quirks or how one's own mind works, and then finding workflows or sleep patterns or patterns for working with people that allow you to operate at your best, right? Because the thing is, at the end of the day, you're going like, we're leading teams here that are then like, you know, looking to us.
Everything you do is reflected, like magnified. You're like, you know, my eye is kind of itchy, and suddenly the entire team's like, our eyes are itchy. What's going on? If
you don't have like a roadmap together for like a week, the team does not have a roadmap together for a week. And that means the concept doesn't. That means that the idea doesn't. That means that your investors don't. That means that your community doesn't. That means your customers don't. That means what's going on.
You're a leader. You're literally. But it's not just like, it's not you turn on being a leader. It's you're always a leader. And that was one of the shocking things about like being a founder, is that you couldn't turn off being a leader. You're either always a leader or you're never a leader.
Yeah. What has that journey been like for you?
It's been a long and tumultuous journey. We've been through a lot of ups and a lot of downs, and right now it's going really well.
Oh, I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah. You know, it's been a process. I guess learning to manage my own psychology, that's one way of looking at it. I think another way of looking at it is learning to get in touch with my DGAF.
DGAF?
Yeah.
Tell me more.
I don't give a fuck.
That's a big part of it, really. Yeah, actually, you know, one of the, so there's been a couple of these things that like you could call them like mantras, you could call them like just like ideas that have like kind of like accelerated like one's journey with themselves. And one of the things that that did that for me was this idea of non-attachment to outcome, right? And that to me is like one of the biggest indicators of like not giving a fuck, right? Is like, can you go into a situation, right? And like, you know, you're fully responsive, you're non-anticipative, right? You have a good time, right? Even in like literally like the midst of like whatever is going on. And most importantly, even though you are trying to steer it towards the best outcome for, you know, your like, you know, your team, your customers, like everyone, your community, you still have to maintain this level of non-attachment to the way it goes. Because if it goes bad, and here's the thing, is if you're trying crazy stuff, you will fail. You will fail. It's not, you may fail, you may not fail, you will fail. And you better be able to get back up and start doing shit like immediately afterwards, right? And how can you do that if you take every little bit personally?
I feel like this is also like the same concept of your ABC, like always be a customer. Never sell anything. You just turn every interaction into your shopping around. And that only works if you're not attached to any specific interaction. If you have an abundance mindset, if you think that there's so many opportunities in the world, like if you fuck up, you can try again. Like you're shopping for the opportunity to succeed.
Yes, I agree. And it's like, it's one of the things that like I've been talking to people about recently, and I've learned is actually kind of a controversial notion, is that I strongly believe that luck can be engineered. Or for a less technical way to put it, luck can be manifested, right?
Well, you find enough opportunities to be lucky. You know, there's some probability every time you're going to get lucky, and then one day you will.
Yeah, it's probability. And the thing is that like, it's that like, there are a lot of people who start from a place of high probability in that regard. And there are a lot of people who start from a place of low probability in that regard, right? My parents were born in absolutely terrible conditions. My dad was born in the middle of a civil war in Nigeria. And yet I'm here on this couch with you. Yet we ran AI events together that like headlined here in SF, right?
Yeah.
We did cool shit that I'm proud of. And we're building these, we're building these companies. And it was essentially because like they decided that like, okay, yes, our luck right now may be here. Because our default, if we were, which I think that's really what it is, if you just sit there and you don't do anything, what luck comes to you, right? And it was pretty low for them, right? Yeah. So they were like, okay, we're going to use all of this inside to bring it up here. And then it's not that any single opportunity is going to play out, right? Yeah. But it's that if you keep pulling the thread on the opportunities that do come out, something will work, because that's just what happens probabilistically. You just stay alive long enough while fighting for it. And
I feel like this is another way of saying resiliency. You gotta be just so resilient.
Resilience and persistence. And honestly, there's a term that a friend of mine came up with, a beautiful soul. Her name is Helena Mark, right? She calls it punk optimism.
Punk optimism.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah.
I feel like I don't have any of that. Very pessimistic.
I feel like I wouldn't be here right now. I wasn't chock full of it.
I have this like everything's gonna fail, but you know what? We only got one life. We got to try anyway mentality.
I actually agree with you. I have that exact same mentality, but to me, I say it with a smile on my face. Everything's gonna fail. Do it anyway, right? Yeah. And if you keep doing that, things will work.
You know, I also found that was not a mentality that you could direct towards a team.
Totally.
Yeah. Your team doesn't want to hear that. Your team doesn't want to hear that the shit you're doing is gonna fail.
You know what? I think that it depends on the team.
They want to hear that their work can make it succeed. It is optimism. It's this punk optimism. And it is something that I've had to grapple with personally, like switching around my mindset from, like, because this is a founder, it's like a very internal founder mindset of like, it's going to fail, but I'm going to try everything. Not everybody's built that way.
This is true. That part I definitely agree with.
That's like a hard way to be built too.
I think that there is I wouldn't call it a middle ground, because that makes it sound more like a compromise kind of situation. But there is a nuance in how things can be communicated where to one's team, where you can bring about this idea of, okay, look, we try things, right? And when we do try things, we put our back into it. We do it because we see that this is going to work out. Or sometimes maybe we do it just because we think it'll be fun, right? Yeah. And we set our definition of like what working is, right? But working may not be this one thing being a success, right? I mean, like Apple put out was it the G3 Cube? And like they ended up pulling it. People don't talk about that much, but they ended up pulling it because
I've never heard the Apple G3 Cube.
I'm sure you haven't. They pulled it really quickly.
What a terrible.
I mean, the thing was like beautiful, but I think it like overheated, it cracked, and and all this stuff, and of course a lot of the other stuff that they put out, like jobs like the Newton or the camera, people are like, oh well, that wasn't under jobs. See, they put
out a camera.
The Apple Quick Take.
Okay.
Yeah. No one's heard of that.
No, I want one.
I think they made scanners and stuff too. When Jobs came, he killed all of it.
I guess they make a camera now. In fact, they're one of the most commonly used cameras.
It's come full circle. And now it's called Eyesight. That's funny.
Really? It's called Eyesight?
That's because they made a webcam for the Mac called Eyesight, and now they just keep using the name. They don't say it.
Oh no, I was just talking about
the iPhone camera is called Eyesight.
Really?
Back one's called Eyesight, front one's called FaceTime. There's the info. I don't know if that's useful for you at all, but there you go.
I'm gonna go and use it on my.
Apple bar trivia.
When I produce my camera and compete with it.
Oh yeah, there you go.
I can't give it.
There you go. There you go. You'd be getting a really fun letter from Tim Cook. But I do think that there is a way to communicate this with teams, where these things can be it's like training, right? Like you're going out there, you're putting your all into it. But if you have like let's say you take your team, you divide them into two, and you basically point them against each other, right? One team has to lose, right? Now technically you all won, right? Because someone won, but you all lost because someone lost, right? But that's almost like, and this is actually funny because it would like, from what I understand, they would do this at Apple actually. I believe that's like actually how the iPhone came about. They put two teams against each other. One that was like, let's take the iPod and scale it up to be a phone, and then the other team that's like, let's take a Mac and scale it down to be a phone. And I think it's clear history decided which team won, but that also meant one of those teams lost. And sometimes that means doing it in the market as well. And the thing is that like that is like, I think imbuing that in one's team, even though that is not how everyone is made, right? That is also part of doing this. Right? That is also part of doing this. It's like building that kind of like movement behind it. Because then ultimately, even though you're making that impact, it's still because of this idea that the way we're doing things is long-term going to be for the end benefit of the people we're building this for, right? Whoever the customer is, right? Either the future of how like LLMs like operate, or whether it's to enable an entire new generation of entrepreneurs. Right.
What's something that's been challenging about being an AI founder specifically?
So the first thing that comes to mind is that we're still very much in the early days of both prompt engineering and of the LLMs themselves. Right. Like, so even like with prompt engineering, even with extensive prompt engineering, things can still be like hit or miss. So you can put like QA levels behind it, and then even the QA like prompts can be hit or miss, right? That's the first thing that comes to mind. The second thing that comes to mind is like where the LLMs are at, right? Like they're extremely powerful, but I mean like we're still like in the extremely early days. We're still in like the first Macintosh territory of building on top of these things, right? So much is going to be enabled, and while the future is being crafted right now, but there's still like a lot of just like quirks that you have to deal with, right? Whether like, for example, context loss over long context windows that you were alluding to earlier, things like that. And then there's also and I wouldn't say this is as like an annoyance or something. I think that this is actually an important conversation that we are at the precipice of right now, which is a lot of the unanswered questions around using these models to create these businesses, right? Everything from the questions around copyright to the questions around to questions around like ethics of it, to questions around the idea that it could put particular people like out of like business, right? Or like it can take jobs and things like that. All of these are things that I think like the entire industry is grappling with, and that it's also like each of us are also kind of like grappling with as like founders as we like build these companies.
What's some tech you would like to see more founders focusing on?
New computer. Yeah.
The LLM computer.
Like a re-envisioning of how we interact with software. I think that we have become very comfortable with our current paradigms, and it is becoming harder and harder for us to see how we interact with software from a lens beyond user and screen. And I think that we have now just been given the tools to blow far beyond that, right? Just far beyond that, right?
You're not concerned at all about like the accuracy of these systems?
Well, the accuracy of these systems is, okay, so I feel like there's two fronts to talk about the accuracy of these systems. One is the factual accuracy of these systems, right? And then the second is the sort of like comprehension or like almost kind of like ideation or neural processing accuracy of these systems. On the factual accuracy of these systems, we're relying on the content that it already knows in its head. And Yeah, I can see it making a mistake. I make a mistake. If you ask me like things like right off the top of my head, some of them I'm just gonna have to tell you, I'll have to get back to you on that because I'm not in front of the internet, right? I don't have like my fact book in front of me, and I only have like so much memory as a human being. Um, and the way to do that is in the same way that we supplement ourselves with calculators, we supplement these LLMs with knowledge repositories, whether it's like a company knowledge repository or it's the internet itself, right? So we can use that to pull facts. So then in that case, I tend to see LLMs less as being a source for factual knowledge itself, right? But more as like a neural processing unit to be able to take factual knowledge and then basically perform like word or syntactic engineering on it after the fact. Then comes to that second part, comprehension like accuracy, right? Its ability to do that. And a big part of what we've seen is that it's not perfect. It's definitely not perfect, but it is very, very good, and it is getting much, much better very quickly. In terms of going where the hockey puck is going, right? Like looking towards where the hockey puck is going and not where it's coming from. That like every cell in my body just says like that's where it's going. We're only going to see the accuracy improve.
What do you want to tell the world? What is important for you, for your life?
One of the most pivotal and most important things that I'd ever heard in my life was a quip that Steve Jobs made, actually. I remember hearing when I was younger, and every year it's just like kind of meant something more and more to me. It's the idea that every single thing around you was created by someone no smarter and no more capable than yourself. And I think that it's very easy for us to hear that and put a lot of caveats on it on two fronts. One, not realizing just how deep that goes when I say everything, from your shirt to these mics, to the cameras, to the disco ball, to Disney, all of it. And then the other side is the caveat of being like, oh, well, there are people smarter than me. Einstein was smarter than me. You know, MLK was better at rallying people than me. All this stuff. But I only continue to find that to be more and more true.
Yeah.
Everyone is capable of making so much incredible cool stuff. And everything that you see around you was made by someone no smarter and no more capable than yourself.
That's really beautiful.
I wish I could take credit for it, but I cannot.
I think that is just a wonderful sentiment, and I'd never heard that before. So thank you for telling me that. Like looking around right now, I'm like, you know what? I could make that disco ball. But like, yeah,
just take a mirror and shatter it into 100 tiny pieces. Painstakingly put it on a.
It like almost gives you permission to be more creative as a person.
It does. It's so funny. It almost like there's like a there can be a permission needed. Some people are just like born without needing that permission. That's fantastic, right? I definitely had to learn to give myself that permission. I was not born with this idea that I could just go and do anything, right? Or I
feel like I try to do things, and I feel like I'm fighting against myself to do things very frequently.
Exactly. Like there's like an inner apprehension, right?
Yeah.
But that apprehension can actually be compounded away. The more that you do the thing anyway, the more that you trust yourself to do the thing anyway.
Yeah. Do you ever find yourself like rebelling against authority to create?
To create?
Yeah.
Every damn day.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you ever find yourself rebelling against authority to create?
Oh yeah.
Mr. Head of Anarchy?
Oh yeah. I mean, like, I feel sometimes it's just so frustrating. It feels like literally everybody is trying to stop you from doing what you want to be doing. And this is what I mean when I say like being like my journey in being a founder was a journey to decaf. Like when I named the company Anarchy, everyone was like, "That's a terrible name. Please don't do that." And like it was me trying to please everybody else instead of just doing what like I fucking wanted to do. I wanted to call the company Anarchy. It's my fucking company. Like Anarchy is a cool name. I'm gonna call it that. And like, yeah, sometimes it feels like the entire world is against you. Like even if they're not actually, it might just not like this little thing that you're doing. They don't really fucking care because they're not you. They're not living your life. And yeah, but sometimes they literally are. They literally are trying to stop you.
Sometimes, sometimes, yeah. But I do also find that like there's a difference between people like trying to stop you by saying something that is discouraging or by having like their own apprehension, right? Versus trying to stop you by like putting physical work into trying to stop you. And for me, it's like if somebody is just saying the thing, then they're just saying what came to their mind, and maybe it comes from a good place, and honestly, maybe it doesn't. But those are words.
I mean, I had an employee literally go and be like, "No, you can't call the company Anarchy," and was went around telling people like that the company's not called out Anarchy.
That is more than words. That's different. That's an employee telling people that the company is not called something that it's called. That's a different thing. But then there's when people actively do things like physical things to impede your progress. In which case, like
I feel like
it's time to be the parent.
As a founder, you have to go beyond the decaf too. Like you got to get the decaf, but you got to go beyond it into the like, no, I give a fuck. And I'm doing the thing like anyway, because it happens enough. Like people trying to physically impede you that like if you were like first you have to get over your own humps over the people who just don't like the idea, and then you have to get over the people who like aggressively are like, no, I don't want you to build that, because enough people are out there. Your competitors, if you have competitors, will try to stop you eventually.
Oh, sure, but I mean, like, those are competitors. I mean, like,
so is everybody who's trying to stop you. You know,
no, competitors trying to stop you is one thing. Other people trying to stop you.
Local governments. Parents.
Okay, well that's also a different situation. Now you're talking more like when
the police.
Uber got started.
The D cells.
Yeah.
You ever encounter the D cells?
I've not heard that term in this regard, but I can assume. I think I can fill in the blank.
Oh, it's the opposite of the EX.
Yeah,
the people came first.
Yes, I do. That is what I figured it would be.
In fact, I went to one of our AI on the couch meetups, AI in the park meetups, the first one, and somebody came who was a D-cell, and I had this long conversation with him, and it's just like, no, I think that all AI progress is bad. Why are you here organizing these AI people? It came to try to stop us.
That's what he said.
Yeah.
That's interesting. I don't think the cat is out of the bag. The cat's out of the bag. If we're being fully honest and realistic with ourselves, the cat is out of the bag. I do think that it is now a matter of
there's regulation.
Like there is regulation.
Yeah.
You can regulate here in the US. There is the rest of the world that also has access to this technology that will not adhere to those regulations, which is, also something that I don't hear discussed a whole lot in that.
So you're going to fight the regulation?
Depends on what it is. I don't know.
I hope you wouldn't roll over, though. They're going to come and say, like, no, your business, we're going to regulate it away.
We're not a rollover kind of group of people. We are basically like, we're here, like, I haven't really talked a whole lot about like what our company Charm does, but at the end of the day, our whole thing is basically fostering a new generation of entrepreneurs by making their work simpler and taking away basically the bullshit work, the work they shouldn't have to do as part of it. As part of starting something from scratch. And in that regard, I mean, we're going to fight to make sure that we're able to like do that for these like customers, right?
I think that's wonderful. That's what I would love to hear if I was a customer.
No.
Well, I think that is a great note to end on.
All right.
Thank you so much for coming on the Accelerometer.
Oh yeah.
It was really wonderful having you and seeing you again.
Thanks for having me, Matthew.